Hello, and thank you for joining us today at the webinar to look at the new agent portal for Bournemouth University. My name's Nick Watts, one of the developers of the portal, and I'll be delivering today's presentation, giving you an overview of the features that the agent portal offers. The plan for today's talk is that I'll give a brief introduction to what the agent portal is, and then I'll spend around 30 minutes submitting a test application and going through the features of the agent portal. After I've demonstrated the features that the portal has to offer, we'll aim to have 15 minutes or so of questions and answers at the end, so that hopefully anything that wasn't clear during the talk or any additional questions you may have as we go along can be answered. Just for information, as Hannah said, we'll collate all the questions that are asked and their answers and make them available to you in a single document at a later date. Also, if there's anything that we're not able to answer straight away today, we'll take that away and we'll make sure that they're answered when we circulate that document. The agent portal you're going to see today is our development system, and the live product is due to be in place by the end of this week. So the development site is pretty much an exact copy of the live environment, so we'll look exactly as you will see it when it goes live. However, you might see some applicants with slightly odd names because it's full of test data, so when we come and look at some of the reports, you may see some strange names. There's a comprehensive user guide that we've put together that documents the step-by-step process in making an application and how to use the agent portal, and that should be useful for answering a number of potential queries that you might have. It's always available, the user guide, on the landing page of the agent portal, so I'll point it out when we get to that section of the demonstration. So before I begin this step-by-step demo, I will give a brief introduction to what the portal is and what it can do. The Bournemouth University agent portal has been designed to give all of BU's international representatives an overview of the direct online applications for BU courses. You should continue to use the online application form to submit individual applications just as you did last year. The agent portal itself is a management information tool, which will mean that you now have an online location where you can view all those applications in one place, and you'll be able to track their progress from wherever you are. It will also provide you the facility to report on your applications, access other useful BU-related information and links, and to notify us of any changes in your contact and address details at your offices. This webinar will start off with a brief reminder of how to submit an application using the online application form, and then further through the webinar we'll see that application in amongst some others that I've set up in advance, and I'll demonstrate briefly how to use all of the features of the agent portal. By the end of the webinar you'll have seen how to submit an application, access the agent portal, respond to any requests for further information about an application, view useful BU links about international applicants, see an overview of all of your agency's applications, report on any applications you've submitted and export them to an Excel file, and edit your agency's contact and address details. So that's the end of the PowerPoint slides. Let's begin the demonstration. Just close that down. Okay, so I'm going to start by submitting an application from the BU homepage. I would search for a course, and because I wanted to make sure I could find one straight away, I'm going to search for digital effects, and we're going to apply for a Masters in Digital Effects. Once I've found the course I'm interested in, I will see some information about that course, the key information of the next start date, where it's taught, how long it lasts, and at the top here I'll have this green Apply Now button. So I'm going to click the Apply Now button and it will take me to the Create a New User screen. As I said earlier, I'm going to use our development system, so bear with me while I just type in a slightly different web address. Otherwise we'll be doing this live and somebody will receive my application for a test person. So click on that. That takes us to the Create a New User screen. At this point we create a new user, so click on the New User button and put in some details. Okay, and I'm just using dummy email addresses and dummy names and things, but obviously here you would be putting in the information of the applicant that you're applying on behalf of. When we come to the email section, this part is the applicant's email, so don't put your agency's email address in that. There's a place later on in the application form where you fill in your agency's details. You need to choose a password, Whoops, I can't type, unfortunately. Okay, and then just confirm that password. That password stays valid for the duration of you placing the application. Once you've clicked submit, as you'll probably remember from last year, then a new email comes out that gives a student reference number and you'll receive a new password. So during the application, that password is valid. If you log out at any time, you can come back and log in as that person and it will let you submit the application. Oh, except I've managed to mistype it. Excuse me 1 second. Let me try that again. So we go into this landing page. It just tells you a little bit about the application and how to choose your course. You're probably familiar with this anyway. We'll click on proceed to the application form. So you now arrive at the application form itself, and you'll see it's made up of a number of tabs at the top here, and you work your way through the tabs until you've completed the application. The key thing to keep in mind here is that you're always entering the details as if you were the applicant. There's a section to identify your agency, which we'll arrive at in a second, but otherwise all of the information asked for here is the information about the applicant themselves. Because you're identifying yourself later on in the application form as an agent, that means that BU will then use your agency as the first point of contact for this application. So I'm just going to enter some personal details for Jacob Demo. I'm going to say that he is from Afghanistan because he's near the top of the list, but obviously you'd be putting in the nationality and the residency details of your applicant. I'm going to say English is his first language and that he hasn't studied previously in the UK. If you have them here, then it's useful to put in the passport details, because if you don't put them in, we will need them before the applicant arrives. Oops, I've put that in the wrong field. So we will ask you for them for our admissions team. But if you don't have a passport information at that time, it's not mandatory. You don't have to put it in at this stage. Okay. So just putting in some information for the passport. We'll leave the previous UK visas detail empty just to save some time. So I click on Next. And when we come to the Contact Details tab, you see we've moved, this one's gone green because it's completed, we've moved to the next one. The email address you'll see is already populated. That will populate with the email address of the applicant that you give at the point when you register. If the applicant has provided you with a second email address that you could use to contact them, then fill that in here. And remember, that's still the applicant's email address. And then we enter some information for their home address. So I'm just going to make up a generic address, put some information in there, and then if they've given you a telephone number, it's useful information to store on the application form. Just to point out that this field here for telephone numbers only takes numerical characters. So if you're putting in the international dialing code, then pop it in like that with the 2 zeros and the 2 codes, and then put the numbers in for the rest of the telephone number. If you try to put a plus, which I think is sometimes quite common, then the form will squeak at you and it will say there's a strange character in that telephone number. The next field down is for contact address. It asks you, is your contact address the same as your home address? Again, remember that we're applying on behalf of the applicant. So if the applicant had given you a contact address which is separate from their home address, you would fill that information in here. I'm going to say that it's exactly the same. Tick that box and the contact address detail just disappears. So finally on this tab, we reach the international representative details. This is where you identify yourself as the agent for this person. So I'm going to find my agency from the list. My agency is called AG Sits Test. And a new field appears, an agent email address. This is worth just explaining in a little bit more detail for you. We already hold an email address for all of our agencies that the international recruitment team will have. It's usually something like a generic address, admissions@myagency.com or something similar to that. If you fill nothing in here, then that's the email address that we'll use for correspondence about this application. Normally, that's probably the way we would recommend, because it means that somebody in your office will always receive the email. However, if you work in a really large office, perhaps with a number of people submitting applications, and the individual member of your team who's submitting this application wants to be email notified about them directly to their own personal work email address, then they can put that email address in here, and everything about this application will go to the email address that they specify. Again, if they leave it blank, it will go to your general office email address. So I'm going to pretend that I'm working in a busy office and that I want to receive emails about this applicant rather than it going to the general office email address. So I've put an email address in. Then I click on Next. So we're on to the Education and Qualifications tab. You see the last one's gone green again. And to save a little bit of time, I'm just going to put in one education and qualification record. I'm going to put in a non-UK degree in here. Obviously, if you're applying and you have other education details, then you can enter them here. If an applicant has more than one degree, then when you've completed the information in this section for higher education, you can add another either from the same or a different institution. If they've given you their secondary education or their high school results, then you can fill those in down here. And there's a section for professional qualifications as well. So I'm just going to enter one to save us a little bit of time. So let's put that information in here. International University. Qualification type, so they have an undergraduate degree, but it's a non-UK one, so that's on our list. There are some qualifications that we don't have on our list. If that's the case, then you just need to fill them in other there. But this one's a nice straightforward one. Okay. Mode of attendance, so that's whether they were full-time or part-time. You can say they're full-time. The result field here leaves you a little bit of space to enter however results may be recorded in your country. So in some places it's a grade point average, in other places it will be a classification like a first class or a second class, in other places it might be a percentage. It leaves you space to enter any of those things in there, so I'm going to put a GPA in. And then the last box here says, have they achieved it, have they finished, or is that a predicted score? So I'm going to say that they finished because they finished in July 2015. Okay. So if I scroll down to the bottom now, you'll see at the bottom there's a section for English language qualifications. For this section here, only complete this if the applicant already has those English language qualifications, because otherwise we would normally, when we make an offer to international students, international applicants, we would make that offer with an English language qualification as one of the conditions, and it's normally an IELTS score or equivalent. If they've already completed an IELTS or another of the English language qualifications, then you can complete those details here. I'm going to pretend that they haven't, and I will leave it blank. Click on Next, and the next section we come to is employment history. Now, depending on which course you're applying for, the age of your applicant, etc., you may have some information, you may not. They may have come straight from school, gone and done an undergraduate degree, and then going straight into the next course. So none of this is mandatory, but if they provide you with employment history, clearly you've got the information that you can fill in here. I'm just going to tick this box saying I don't have any relevant employment history, and we can scroll down to the bottom and move to the next screen. Just a couple of questions on the funding tab. Who's expected to pay your fees? There's a number of choices here. If it's government or other, then you need to give information about that. But I'm going to make this nice and simple and say that they are self-funding and they are not related to an employee of the university. Click on Next. And this moves me on to the personal statement tab. What I've got is a personal statement that I've borrowed from somebody else, and I'm just going to cut and paste it into the personal statement tab. It might be in some cases at your agencies that you've been provided the personal statement on a separate document. That's not a problem. if you have that as a separate document, you can upload it at the end of the form in the supporting documents section, but you have to put something in this screen here. So I would suggest just saying, please see the supporting documents for the full personal statement as a little piece of text in here, and then we'll know when it comes to our admissions team that that's where we need to look for it. Once you put that statement in, click on Next. This moves us on to the References tab, and we normally ask for an academic reference. In fact, I think we would always ask for an academic reference where possible. I'm just going to enter some referee details in here. This will automatically generate an email to the referee that you enter in here, asking them to provide a reference. And they'll either be able to complete that reference online, they type it into a box that appears on a link for them in the email, or they'll be able to upload a document if they've already written that reference, and they can put that in for us. So I'm just going to put in some referee details here. Oops, if I could type. Okay. Oops. Okay, I'm going to say that they are the tutor of my applicant, and their email address is a referee. Okay. And select the country. Okay, so I filled in some reference details there, and I will click on Next. Okay, now we're quite close to completing the form, and we've come to the supporting documents section. So here you've got the opportunity to upload documents. Depending on how much information you've got, then you can put everything that you have in here. If you don't have all of the documents that you need, we will probably ask for them at a later date, but you're able to submit without having all of the documents if you don't have them to hand. You'll notice that this very top one, qualifications, certificates and transcripts, is mandatory. It's mandatory, but if you don't have it, if you check this box here, it will bypass it and it will say, okay, that's fine. And our admissions team will contact you at a later date to make sure that we receive those copies. Obviously, if you've got a passport copy or the English language test results, then you'd put them up here. I'm going to put up the one document that we must have from an agent application. And that is the agent representation consent form. I believe you may have been sent that already, but if not, then I'll point it out in a second. It's inside the agent portal itself. But this is the form that you would get your applicant to sign to say that they're happy for you to act on their behalf and to submit their application. It's a legal requirement for us, so we can't process anything without it. So I'm just going to show you how you would upload a document. It works exactly the same for all of these boxes. Click on Browse. You go and find the document that you want to upload, double click it, and you'll see the page refresh, and that document has appended itself to your application form here. If you've put the wrong one on, click the delete button, it will take it away. If you want to just check that you've definitely put the right one on, then you can click this view document link here, and your browser will say, do you want to open it? I'm going to open it, and with a bit of luck, a Word document will open, and there's the consent form. So this is the form that you will have access to that we need to get all of your applicants to sign. Just close those down and we'll go back. So that's the only one that we must have at the point of submission, but we may ask you for lots of other documents at a later date. I'm going to click on to Next. And we're on to the last tab here. So this is just the Equality and Declaration section, and you complete these as accurately as you can on behalf of your applicant. So Jacob Demo is male. I'm going to say he is all of these things here, and then it's just the declarations to say that the applicants had a chance to see the Dignity and Diversity and Equality policy, whether they have any criminal convictions that might be relevant for the application, and that they agree to the declarations and the data protection. Once you've finished, that's the application done, and so you click on the Submit Application button. You just get a little pop-up box to remind you, just to check that you're really definitely ready to submit this. You'd be amazed how you get to the end and you think, yeah, I'm done, and then you suddenly realize that you've missed out some documents or something. As long as we're happy, we'll click OK. So that's the application submitted, and hopefully my colleague Ben is about to move that application so that we can see it when we come to log into the agent portal. You'll get a little message that comes up, a summary of the application that you've submitted, just to confirm that it's definitely gone into us. That will come through and reach our admissions team. Okay, so if I go back to the university homepage, that's our application submitted, and we're going to go into the agent portal itself now and have a look at the features that are in there, and I'll show you what you can see of that application when we reach that part of the demonstration. So first, to log into the portal, you simply need to head to the BU main homepage, www.bournemouth.ac.uk, and you'll see at the top of the screen here, there's a link that says My Hub. That's what our applicants know the portal as, and that's exactly the same place as where you will log in. So we click on the My Hub link, it takes you to a page where it gives you various bits of information, but we just need to click on the My Hub section. Again, I need to just remember to go to our development system, so bear with me while I change the URL. And there you are at the login page. So this is where you will log in to the agent portal. So I'm going to log in as a dummy agent. If I can type the password correctly this time, and click on the login. We'll send you out usernames and passwords within a few days of this demonstration, so you'll have them to hand very soon. When you first log in, the very first thing it does is it asks you to change your password. So set a password here for something familiar to you, make it memorable, and also remember that we're going to send out one username and login per office, so each agent will receive one username and login. If you work in a large office, you'll need to just share the login details with your colleagues so that they can log in too. Okay, so I'm going to set a new password. My typing's got slightly better as I've gone on. Click on Go. And that will take us in. So this is the agent portal landing page, and we'll start over on the top left-hand side. This reminder message here is just to remind you when you submit any application form that we must have that agent's representation consent form that we just saw. That's always available at this login page. So if I click on the link here, my browser will ask me, do I want to open it? Click on OK. And there's that form again. So if you need to create a little store of those, obviously you would just print out, however many you need and get them signed by your applicant as and when you need to. Then you'd scan those and attach them as a supporting document when you put in an application. So that will sit there all the time. The latest version, if anything is ever updated, will always be put in underneath this link. If I jump from the top left down to the bottom right, you'll see there's a section here called Help. This is the comprehensive user guide that I mentioned early on when we started this webinar. If I click on there, works in exactly the same way. It will open that guide. I'll click on OK. And with a bit of luck, it will launch PDF Viewer. It comes up in huge font. And you'll see there's the user guide. And it's around about a 50-page document. And if I just scroll down, hopefully this will give you pretty much all of the information you'll ever need. It's full of screenshots and it's got helps and tips. There are a cover. Here you'll see that there's a generic email address, the internet problems with the portal. You can always send an email to this address here. It will be picked up by somebody in the international team and we'll get back to you with the answers. Okay, so if I go just up above that, we go on to the useful links section. These are fairly self-explanatory. And if we have a look here at the useful links, you'll see that there are lots of things related to placing applications and internationals. A couple of things to point out here is that the course information will link you straight through. If I click on it, it opens a new window, a new tab in your browser, link you straight through to the courses section so that you can go and search through the courses that you might want to apply for. Close that one down. And then this one here, My Hub, log in as an applicant, will take you to the login page for MyHub. This is useful when you need to respond to something that we've asked you to do. So it might be that you've submitted an application and we need some more information. We call those things a clearance check. So our admissions team will place a clearance check and it will send that through. If you remember, when you apply, you receive an individual username and password for each of your applicants, and that's where you'd go to respond to that clearance check. So you'd log in as the individual applicant. Remember, the agent portal is an overview. You can see all the applications, and in a second we'll have a look. You'll be able to see if anything needs doing, but if you have to actually perform that action, you need to log in as the individual. Okay, so the rest of the useful links hopefully are fairly self-explanatory, and we will go over to the left-hand side. So the Agent Actions section here, you see you've got the opportunity to edit your local office address. So if you move offices and the base of your agency goes somewhere else, then you can notify us here. You don't need to send us an email, you don't need to call or contact. You can just log into the portal and put in whatever the new details are. So let's assume that we've moved to number 1000 International Street, whoops, and then we'll leave that and we'll say that we've changed our telephone number. Okay, and we've got a new email address. So instead of applications, it's now international applications. Click on save, and we are automatically notified of that, and it will make a change immediately to your settings. So any other communications about your applications will now go out to that new email address you've provided us with, and if we need to contact you in another way, then we've got your contact postal address and we've got your telephone number. Click on finish, and that will take us back to the landing page. One thing that I should point out is that if you're ever somewhere inside the agent portal performing an action, you'll always have this link at the top with a little blue line above the top, agent portal, and if you click on that, that brings you back to this landing page. So this is your home link basically. If you ever need to get back and you're lost somewhere in the agent portal, click on that link at the top left and it will take you back in. Okay, the final bit that we need to look at is this section here, the agent report section. And I hope that this is the bit that you're going to find the most useful. This offers you the option of two different reports. There's applications submitted, which will provide you with an overview of all of the applications you've submitted on screen inside the portal. And then there's another one, export application details to Excel. Does exactly what it says. It creates you a CSV file, which you can then open in an Excel workbook and do whatever you need to do to it. So let's look at the top one first, the application submitted. So I click on the link, and it takes me into this search screen here. So it remembers whatever you last searched for, and because I've been using the portal, it's put in a code for a course there. If I click on this clear fields button, it will just refresh the page and everything will go blank. This is the way to search for all of your applications. So if you want to see every application you've ever submitted, if you clear fields and then click on retrieve with nothing in this criteria set here, then it will whir away for a little while and it will pull back every application you've submitted. We've done a number of them here, so I'm hoping we're going to find 20, maybe 25 applications in here. It's going to take a little time because we're in our development system, but in live, obviously we have faster and speedier service, so it will go much faster here. Okay, so we have 26 applications and then the progress bar will just whir across and tell us how quickly it's going to go. I've timed this very badly because it's exactly 11 o'clock here and a number of automated jobs go on in the background on the hour, and so this is probably the worst time for me to be doing this. Just give it a few more seconds. Here we go. It's starting up now. So remember here I've selected no criteria at all. It's basically going to pick up everything that I've submitted from my agency. So that's completed, and you'll see a list of, again, slightly random names, I'm afraid, because it's full of test data, but you'll see a list of all of the applicants there. If I click back to search again, it might be that what you want to do actually is narrow down to retrieve just a particular set of results. So I'm going to retrieve everyone that's applied for digital effects in my agency. So if I begin to type in here, you'll see that it narrows it down. So you'll see lots of things come up, and eventually it will match to the only one that you've typed in. Click on digital effects. It puts a course code in here, which unfortunately will mean nothing to you, but it translates that into the title over on the right-hand side. So if I click on retrieve again, it will go away and search, and rather than the 26 that we had, it should bring back just a handful. And you'll see here we've got, I think, 5 applicants, and this is the chap that we applied on behalf of in the earlier part of the demonstration. So Jacob Demo is in here. You'll see if I hover over it, the line goes blue, so it highlights it here, and if I click with that while it's blue, it will pop up and it will bring up just an overview. It makes kind of a mock-up PDF of the application details that I entered for that person. So if you want to go and have a look at what information you've put in, you can just click on the name of the applicant and it will show you that. 2 other things to point out here that are probably quite useful. There's a column here called decision status. So that tells you at what point of the application cycle they are. So all of these guys, the top 4, have no decision. So they're with our admissions team and nobody's made a decision yet. You'll see this bottom chap here has a conditional offer and it says that we're waiting for a response. So that means we will have sent a notification to you saying we'd like to make a conditional offer for Salomon Rondon, and you are to respond to us. And if and when you've responded, it will come up saying conditional offer firmly accepted or conditional offer rejected or whatever it is that you choose to do. The other column that's very useful on this page is this clearance checks column. So if you remember, clearance checks are when we're asking you to perform an action on behalf of the applicant. Normally it's because we need some more information before we can process their application. And you'll see in here that it tells you how many are remaining on any of these applicants. So if there are 0, everything is fine and you know that the applicant is going well. If there are some remaining, it means we need some information for you. So you would know that this person here, 490097, you need to go and log into his applicant portal and there'll be a question in there waiting for you to respond to. So that's the application submitted. That's just an overview that you can see on screen of everybody that you've applied on behalf of. Just have another look now at the applications exported to Excel. So if I click on the link here, get a very familiar looking search box. It asks for exactly the same pieces of information. Again, if I leave it blank, it will pull back every application we've ever put in. So I'm going to click on retrieve while it's blank just so that we can see some good information in the Excel report that it brings up. So I click on retrieve. Your browser, depending on which one you're using, I'm using Firefox, will offer the option to save or to open. I'm going to choose save and just click on OK, and it will go into my downloads section. So when I click on that, application submitted, and it creates me an Excel file. If I just make that a little bit clearer so you can see all the information, it creates me an Excel file of everybody who's ever been submitted as an applicant through my agency. You see across the top here, it's got various columns, so it gives you useful information. It gives you their student code, it gives you name, date of birth, fee status, the course that they're applying to, and it gives you the decision status in here as well. If I just scroll over to the far right, there's another column in here that isn't on the overview report that we looked at earlier. That's the application received date. So that will tell us the day that your application landed with our admissions team. So obviously, if you needed to, you can add other pieces of information in here, or you can sort, or you can cut this data exactly how you want, however is useful for you guys to create management information. So if I just click and say don't save, and we'll go back to the agent portal landing page, that's the demonstration complete, and we're open to any questions that you might have. I think we've been gathering some through the session, so if I have a look, there may be some waiting for us, but my colleague Ben and I will pick up any questions that you might have.